What's going on, people? Welcome back to Blues Fans TV and welcome back to another video for you guys today. Now, the transfer window is not open, but no one's told Chelsea that because we look like we're signing anyone that we can get our hands on right now. And this video today is going to be discussing 6 players whose first team position might be at risk with the inclusion of new arrivals such as Hakim Ziyech, Timo Werner, and maybe Kai Havertz as well. Guys, let me know your thoughts on the players that we mentioned here today. Let me know if you agree or disagree with some of the statements that I make. And if you guys disagree, let me know down in the comment section below. If you guys agree, don't forget to press the like and subscribe button, and don't forget to like and subscribe to Blues Fans TV as well. Without further ado, let's go straight into the video. The first player that we're going to be discussing is Michy Batshuayi. Now, Michy has had a poor spell at Chelsea since the first day where he joined us, and it's always been a struggle for him. And he does look likely to be sold or loaned by next season anyway. He didn't play at all for Chelsea in the recent friendly against Reading yesterday, and in the 11v11 training match at Stamford Bridge, he only played the final third of the game, and Chelsea didn't even give him a squad number. So I feel like for Michy Batshuayi and for Frank Lampard, they both know that his time is basically up at Chelsea. Now, he will be in his last year on his Chelsea contract next season, and Chelsea will probably be looking to get rid of him to raise funds, but he will look tough to sell, and I'm going to explain why in this video. First off, he's got a bumper 110k a week wage package, which is why Crystal Palace didn't aggressively pursue him, and I'll be real, it's not worth 110k. It speaks about the transfer windows that we've had recently, that we got Michy Batshuayi on 110k a week, and we got Danny Drinkwater still on our wages on 110k a week. The only good thing is we are now learning from those transfers, and we're now moving in a much more positive light. Borussia Dortmund were also interested in him after his loan spell there, but ended the negotiations after we asked for 50 million, which again makes sense. And Marseille and Monaco, who his agent has good connections with, both can't afford the striker either. Now, the striker might be used in a player plus cash deal to try and lower a transfer fee. I'm thinking maybe Declan Rice seems like a smarter option, because I know West Ham are interested in, have been interested in the past in trying to get Michy Batshuayi. So it might be a smart deal involving Michy Batshuayi to take off about maybe 20-25 million off the transfer fee. But with the arrival of Werner, Havertz and Ziyech, he's already at the bottom of the pecking order for strikers, and if he stays at Chelsea, he's only going to get lower and lower down by that pecking order. So Chelsea will be looking to raise funds, and let's be real, if they're looking to raise funds, Michy Batshuayi is going to be one of the first names on the list to get rid of. Second player who might be at risk is Tammy Abraham. Now, Tammy has had a very promising first season for Chelsea. He's scored 16 goals and they've all been from open play this season. He's already got more league goals in one season than the likes of Anthony Martial has done in about 4 or 5. And the arrival of Timo Werner is going to have an impact on his game time, if we're going to be realistic, because you look at a player of Timo Werner's quality, if we're only going to play with one striker up front, it does mean that Werner's going to be the striker that starts. Let's be real, if you see Werner and Tammy Abraham, you are not going to bench Werner over Tammy Abraham. That's not at any sort of detriment to a striker that Tammy Abraham is, because he has had a good season, but it has also come with his question marks as well. His goals have dried up since November, as injuries and extensive game time has taken its toll. And to be fair, bringing in Timo Werner is going to lessen the workload on him. It's going to might give him less game time, but it's going to give him more time to recover. And that was a big problem for Tammy Abraham as we reached the Christmas period, as we reached January. We were playing 2-3 games a week, and Tammy was playing about 2 out those 3 games, maybe even 2.5. And it's why we got to around February and Tammy Abraham was being forced to play injured. So it isn't necessarily a bad thing for Tammy Abraham. Lampard knows how to rotate the squad, and when it comes to Chelsea academy players, he's always the first to give them opportunities. But it might be better for him to be used sparingly, so he doesn't get overworked to the same extent as last season, where he was being forced to play injured, and we had to a point where we were playing Leicester in February and the guy was being played injured, and there was plenty of chances being put onto him on a play that he couldn't put into the back of the net because the guy was at 50%. So hopefully maybe the inclusion of Timo Werner doesn't hinder his progress. It might limit his game time, but it doesn't mean that it's going to stop him from developing as a player. Our third player at risk is Barkley, and Barkley is another fringe player that could be used to raise funds for transfers. Barkley's had a difficult spell at Chelsea since joining in January 2018, and he struggled to show the potential that he's threatened to produce at Everton over the last couple of years before he joined us. With that said though, the last few games he has looked like a much more revitalised player. He's been going in between the lines a bit more, he's been a lot more threatening in the final third, his passes have been more accurate, and he's looked a much more concentrated player than we've seen for the previous 18 months before then. In my opinion, it's just too little too late for him to save his Chelsea career. The guy's already at the bottom of the pecking order in terms of our midfielders, and even in those games where he was brilliant at, he was only starting because Kante was injured, Kovacic was injured, and Jorginho was suffering a suspension as well. If all three of them were playing, I don't even think Ross Barkley plays those games. And with the arrival of two much more creative midfielders in Hakim Ziyech and Kai Havertz coming in, let's be real, if he's already low in the pecking order, he's only going to go further and further down. It makes sense that we're going to use someone like Ross Barkley to raise funds for potential future transfers, because we already got Ross Barkley on the cheap as it was. We got him for 15 million, so whatever we get for Ross Barkley is going to be profit, and knowing Marina, she's going to end up selling Ross Barkley for a decent price. All we can hope for is that Ross Barkley progresses and continues to show the performance he showed recently towards the end of the season. Maybe if he does that, he might still keep his Chelsea position, but Barkley's already low in the pecking order, and let's be real, the players that we got coming in, you're not going to start any of them under Ross Barkley, are you? So number 3, Ross Barkley. Number 4 is Mason Mount, and Mason Mount is another youth player that has had a very promising first season for Chelsea this season. 6 goals and 5 assists to his name so far in the league. He's developed his game very well under Frank Lampard this season, and like Ross Barkley, he was having great performances on the pitch before lockdown, with great performances against Everton, and I think, well, did he get man the match against Tottenham? If he didn't, he was very close to getting man the match in that game. But like with Ross Barkley, Mason Mount could become another victim of Chelsea's strength in midfield if Havertz and Ziyech eventually join Chelsea, as they will potentially impact his game time. Not to the same extent as Ross Barkley, because I don't think Mason Mount is that low in the pecking order, and I also think Mason Mount has his youth and his experience and years in the Chelsea academy as his advantage. Chelsea aren't just going to throw him to the side as they probably would do to Ross Barkley. Maybe not throw Ross Barkley to the side, but they'll be more willing to get rid of Ross Barkley than they will be to get rid of Mason Mount. Mason Mount will find his position a lot more safe, and I think same way with Tammy Abraham, I think maybe less game time could be more of a benefit to him, because Mason Mount was another one that I think around the Christmas periods was getting a lot more game time than he potentially needed at that point, and I think it was having an impact on his performances as well. If you see his performances around the Christmas period, his execution is a lot more lacking compared to how it was in the previous last couple games before lockdown. So I think with Mason Mount, he will probably see a limited amount of game time. But to the same extent with Tammy Abraham, I think both of those players have had a lot to fight against when it's come to being a Chelsea player as well, because you gotta remember how hard it was to be a youth player before this season anyway. Most of them were barely even getting a look in. So I think for Mason Mount and Tammy Abraham, this is just going to look like another challenge to the pair of them, but it's just going to be another challenge that they face, and I think Lampard will still be able to rotate them and still be able to give them a decent amount of game time to develop their game. And also, if their game does develop, they will be seeing more game time, even potentially over the players that we sign. Because you know what Lampard and Jody Morris are like with the Chelsea youth. They're always focused on building the youth and developing the youth. So for Mason Mount and Tammy Abraham, it doesn't look like it's the end. It just looks like it's going to be another challenge for them to overcome. Our final, well, I say final player, it's final 2 players, but it's because both of these points link in so well to both players, we're just going to put them in the same bracket. This one is Callum Hudson-Odoi and Christian Pulisic. Now, both Hudson-Odoi and Pulisic have both suffered with injuries this season, but they've had strings of consistent game time whenever they've played, and both have had various results through that. Callum Hudson-Odoi started brilliantly when he first came back from his Achilles injury, with 3 assists in his first 3 games, 1 in each game. But he's struggled for goals and assists since then, and I think he's struggled with confidence as well, as he's tried to mentally recover from his Achilles injury, which is meant to be really tough as well. Like physically recovering is one thing, but mentally recovering is another thing, and having that confidence in your body again, which is something that he struggled with. before he suffered another injury in the 2-2 draw with Leicester in February, where we haven't seen him have any game time since then. Pulisic, on the other hand, he struggled with game time at the start of the season as Lampard had doubts over his ability to deal with the strength and physicality of the Premier League, but he started to turn his form around in late October with 5 goals in 3 games, including that brilliant perfect hat-trick against Burnley away, before an injury in the new year after the 1-1 draw against Brighton has kept him out of action since then. Now, I feel like it's a little bit contradictory saying that they're both going to lose their spot to Werner and Ziyech, when in the same way they're potentially going to be going up in the pecking order, because both Willian and Pedro are going to be in their last year of their contract and they're both already on their way out of Chelsea. I think Pedro's already guaranteed to be gone. Willian is near enough there, but he's basically on his way out too. It does feel a bit contradictory saying that they're going to be losing their spot, but with Ziyech more or less guaranteed to be playing on the right hand side or coming in from midfield, and Werner also able to play on the left hand side as well, you could see limited game time for both Pulisic and Callum Hudson-Odoi. But in the same breath with what I said with Mason Mount and what I said with Tammy Abraham, it's not necessarily something that's that bad for them. Both players are still young, both players still have a long way to go in terms of their development. Both players have impressed at points in the season, but both could also improve their strength as well as their in-game management, which could be easier for both to do off the bench, as there would be less pressure on both of them to develop. As if both of them were starting and it was the case where we got rid of Willian and Pedro and just pushed them straight into the first team, the performances would have to be instant, otherwise the fans would be on their back. If they're coming off on the bench, if they've got less minutes, they've got more time to focus on building their game, developing their craft, and with having less pressure on them, while also, on the other hand, giving Chelsea better strengthening options off the bench, which is something that we've struggled for so long over the last couple of seasons. One of our biggest problems is that we don't really have a plan B off the bench, or we don't have players with enough quality off the bench to have enough impact. If we've got players like Callum Hudson-Odoi and Pulisic, who will be growing, who will be developing, coming off the bench around the 70th, 80th minute, that's options, that's a plan B, that's potentially a plan C as well. So for Hudson-Odoi and Pulisic, maybe their spots are at risk, but maybe it's a step back to take a step forwards. You'll never know. But guys, this is the end of the video. Let me know if you agree or disagree with any of the comments I've made, any of the statements I've made. If you think there's any players that I've missed out, let me know down in the comment section below. If not, don't forget to like and subscribe to Blues Fans TV. We are still on that road to 100k, which doesn't look like it's ever going to stop. But if you guys haven't already, please don't forget to like and subscribe to Blues Fans TV. Don't forget to like and subscribe to Carefree Lewis G as well. And we'll see you guys very, very soon. Take care. Up the Chelsea.